Hey, hello. It's in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, and it's Meet Me Pie. So, yeah.
Yay!
Yay! So, I'm Chuck, and
I'm Ais,
yeah, I
and
think,
this is
oop, yeah, I think the internet connection, because Lace is in Ireland, I am in, she's in Dublin, I'm in London, and we're kind of kind of not too far away, but far enough. So, the internet may not be very good, but bear with us. So, and there's another exciting thing about today is that we would have an interview with Michael. It is recorded, but we'll watch it together. So it will be in the middle of the program. And if you have any questions you want to ask Michael, you have to tweet him. I will put the link of his tweet and where to find him in the description if you're catching up later, because he is such an interesting person. You'll see why I say that. So before we have the interview, we would actually have a actually you can see I'm pressing the button. That's very funny. Okay, so let me find my tweet. So yeah, you see that we have a lot of things going on today, and like actually last week. So I think we just try to say this upfront. We have a really bad news, last week that we lost a very, a loving member in the community, and I don't like. Unfortunately, I won't be able to meet him before, but I have a lot of friends that they know him, and obviously he's an amazing person in the community. I think is especially in but actually his influence is around like Europe and even globally. So really sad that we lost Oye. This is very sad news. I think we just pay him some respect and silence for a minute. For people who know him would definitely he'll be missed and remembered. So yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's the sad news. But let's talk about something more light, because we have the Pie Ladies Dublin. So we have this. So like Pie Ladies Dublin, I've been there a few times. Lace, have you been to Pie Ladies Dublin? It's in Dublin.
Yes, actually, that was where I started my Python community work. That was my first community. That was the first place where I went to.
Yeah, I think it's a very lovely community that I've been there physically a few times because I was working in Dublin, and it's a very good community there, and the talks are always interesting. So obviously they're going virtually now, and is in May 19 for the one next month, and also I think they're accepting licensing talk now. So yeah, so just go to their Twitter and you will find all this information on the tweet, and support them, because now is your chance. If you're not in Ireland or in Dublin, there's the chance for you to participate in this loving community. So that's it, and
Ex-
yeah.
exactly. And if you'd like to submit a lightning talk, you can also send an email just saying what you would like to talk about. And we're going to get back to you as soon as possible. And come on, lightning talks, 5 minutes. Everyone should submit one. Are you submitting one, Chuck?
The lightning talk, I think I'm still thinking about it. I may do it. I think yeah, I don't know. It's like because I only plan things like a week ahead. So yeah,
It's too early for you still. It's too early.
yeah, it's too early. I'm a last minute person. So yeah, that's what happening. So so what else do we have? Let me check. And oop,
And
oh, the link was lost for some reason. Let me double check. Oop, sorry about that. Maybe we just go ahead with the next one, and then we'll fix the link afterwards. Okay. So
perfect.
this is the so this is the Python Software Foundations. One of the biggest thing that like they are really like that in the Python community, one of the biggest important thing is that we can download the libraries, right? We can pip install things. So actually, what is pip install doing? What do we get the libraries from? Is from the PyPI. So it's like Python packaging in index, something like that. I can't remember. So it's PyPI. Oh yeah, Python package index. Yes, I was correct. So they have a new sponsorship programs that like they are obviously non-profit making. It's like the Python, so it's like, or most of the Python, ecosystem is free and it's open source. So if you want to, sorry about my mouse. So if you want to support them, now they have a new, sponsorship program that you could help them. I think it's always a good idea if your company is using Python or any like free Python libraries, like pandas or digital or anything request anything like that is important. Consider joining sponsorship program. Your company join a sponsorship program to give back to the community. So because all these software free to use, we're not charging upfront. It's not like you're buying a software that, like, for example, buy some commercial software like let's say Adobe or Microsoft Offices. You have to pay upfront, but like all these are free, open source. So if you like it, give back some support money. If you're a company, maybe giving money is the easiest thing to do. So yeah. And anything to add?
Absolutely. Uh, it's a great opportunity to give it back to the community again. So absolutely, I agree 100% with what you said.
Yep. Okay. So, have we got the link for the because like I totally lost it. So what? Also, it's like, oh,
Let's see.
Pi. Okay. So what I gotta do is I
Oh,
gotta just go to the Twitter. So I think
perfect.
this is Lace you found about like Python in astronomy. This thing, right?
Yes. So they're hosting their first hack days. So it's basically
Yeah.
2 days. So they're opening tonight at midnight uh, on British Standard Time, and they're transmitted 24 hours. It's a series of talks and some hack ideas as well. So it's 5 minutes hack ideas, and you can just pop in the middle of the day and have a look at what's happening. And it doesn't cost anything to join, and it's a great opportunity as well to just see what's going on in the Python in the astronomy community as well. The agenda for the event is also you can also find that on that tweet, and it's basically everything is basically just Google Docs. So
Yeah, so yeah, it's in. I think it's in the this. So just go to the tweets there. You find all the information. And the good thing about it is like you gotta hang out with all these like cool people that work in astronomy. So I think yeah, it's just super cool. You may meet somebody who is like design a rocket or something. So that's just a way of like if you're into science, into scientific computing, that's the way to go. So I think the last news that we have, if let me know if I miss anything, because this is the first time I'm doing like I'm doing this screen sharing. Usually, Lace take care of it, and she did it very well. I'm just like, new to this. Okay, so yeah, like we have the ticket sale for EuroPython, and like why getting the tickets now? Because if you get the tickets now, you can vote for the talks. So the voting of talks is open. I think is still open. So we are, I'm kind of involved in the committee, and then we are like we'll be super busy afterwards because after you vote, we've got to be, counting, doing some analysis on the vote and find the best talk for that people would like to see. So I think so if you well, if you have been to your Python before, if you have submitted a talk, then you're involved, so you can vote already. But if you're new to your Python, because you may want to try this year because like previously you can't go for whatever reason. Well, this year is the easiest to go because like you don't have to fly there, so get a ticket and you can start voting and choose what you want. So I think this is really powerful. Like the audience has a say. Like instead of us, the committee, like, oh, here's the talk, you like it or not, But like instead of that, you can say like, oh, I like this, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's your opportunity, exactly. It's your opportunity to be kind of part of the committee as well. So it's your opportunity to choose what you want to see on your screen, what you want to see people talking about it.
Yeah, and I think the structure are quite different this year because before we will have different tickets for workshops and talks. I think this year is just very simple. You just one ticket for everything, and yeah, it's like, well, it's cheaper because like before
So
is maybe a few hundred euros for just one workshop or the conference, and now it's, of course, like things are online, the courses are lower, so it's cheaper, but they still have some courses, and also we are supporting the Euro Python the foundation, I think. What do you call that? So it's like, so like there will be like a organization behind it that we are supporting. um, so yeah, and like you can get the sprint ticket. It's free, so you're welcome to join
that's free.
sprint. It's for free. Just join if you want to. You would spend like 2 days. I think it's in the weekend that you gotta again hang out with people that is super cool in the community. They may be core developers or they may be maintainers of popular libraries. You gotta work with them. You gotta know them, and it's gonna be exciting. So yeah, that's I think that's the news for now. And now it's like a very exciting time because we're gonna play the video of the interview. Is interview with Michael Foord, my friend. He's the Python core developer. He has been like in the Python community for more than 10 years. It's like for me, it's already like, oh my god, this is history. History of Python. So he also created the mock module. So if you are doing testing for Python, then you definitely come across mock, for more or less. So yeah, so he's a very interesting chap to chat with. Is I like talking to him. So without further ado, let's watch that. So yeah, like Michael, thank you so much for this interview because like Michael is my good friend. We met at EuroPython in 2018, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because like I was like basically what happened is like the conference finished, everybody's looking to have dinner and social, and then I was looking for people that I can socialize with, and there's this like Michael dressing like in a very colorful shirt and very look very friendly and
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, able like I feel like I can chat to him, so like, and then we went for dinner together with a bunch of
Yeah.
people, and
We made friends there.
yeah, so that's great, that's amazing. And so yeah, I think that's it's like I know that some of my friends, actually we have met in Palandinium last year, right? And then my friend was like, oh, like who's this guy? I was like, what, you don't know Michael? So okay, so I think like some of my viewers,
I'm an old timer now.
so yeah, some of my viewers may be the same because they are maybe new to Python. So if you could introduce yourself, that would be really helpful because I don't want to introduce you in my perspective. Yeah.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me today. My name is Michael Foord. I've been developing with Python since 2002. I started back then as a hobby, and I got my first commercial job with Python in 2006, working with a startup in London. And a couple of years after that, I became a Python core developer. We were working, it was a company called Resolver Systems. I never know quite how much of this story to tell. I think some of the other questions are going to cover some of it probably. But I got a passion for testing there. I became a Python core developer. I worked on unit tests. We were using IronPython at the time, so I wrote a book on IronPython. And a testing tool that I wrote originally for work, the mock library, has now become part of the standard library, unit test.mock. So I did that for 4 years. I then did web development with Django and Silverlight, writing Python in the browser for about a year. That was fun. And then went to work at Canonical and spent 6 years there in the end, 3 years doing Django development and 3 years working on a tool called Juju in Go, a DevOps tool. And then a year at Red Hat on Ansible, their enterprise tower product. And since then, I've been doing training. I've been doing training alongside a lot of that. So I've been teaching David Beasley's courses for about 6-7 years now. And I'm doing that full time alongside contracting. And I've managed to land a dream job, an actual dream job. Working at Resolver Systems I look back on that as sort of a programmer's idyll, sort of the first dream job I had, really. We did full extreme programming, agile, and I feel like I really learned the craft of engineering there. I sort of taught myself to program, but I learned how to build things the right ways to build things at Resolver Systems. And I've completely lost the thread of what I was talking about, which might mean it's time to stop talking.
Yeah, like because
my dream job. Yes, that was a programmer's idyll, right?
yes.
And now I've got this contract. I live in a little village in rural Northamptonshire, so that's where I'm talking from now, in my man cave, in my garden shed, where I work. Because I work.
It's really nice. It's really nice. Yeah.
Kerry's been to visit here, and the bluebells are out. We have bluebell woods nearby.
Oh.
We might cheat. It's like a 3-minute, 4-minute car drive, but we might cheat and go and see them still. I probably shouldn't say that, should I?
Yeah.
But anyway, in this village lives a guy who works at Culham, the Centre for Fusion Energy. We have it's in Oxfordshire, and we have the Jet fusion reactor there, which is an experimental fusion reactor. Actually, two, Jet and Mast. They're both tokamak fusion reactors. Neither of them produce power for the grid yet. Nobody's done that yet. I could talk about that at length. Anyway, he's a robot engineer there, and he put me in touch with some folk working there, and I now have a contract working on software that designs fusion reactors. Working with a scientist, I've been turning it into an engineering project. It's 50,000 lines of Python code. It's called Blueprint. I can't say a huge amount about it. Well, I can say a huge amount about it, but there's a huge amount I can't say as well. I can say a huge amount about pretty much everything, which is probably the other reason I'm here. Anyway, so I've got a dream job at the moment, and great, and that's doing Python. So I've done a bunch of stuff with Python. I've done a few years in Go, originally self-taught in Python, and spoken at a lot of conferences, met a lot of people, helped out on the python.org website. I've got this wonderful email address, so michael@python.org, agileabstractions.org.
That's super cool. That's super cool. That's like my dream domain, email domain, like my life goal to have that domain.
It's a brilliant email, professional email address.
Yes.
But I got it actually for helping out on the website and the mailing list, not for any of the other things that I've done. So I helped organize the language summits at the US PyCon for a bunch of years, helped organize EuroPython and PyCon. So I've been around the Python community for quite a long time. I love the Python community. I love Python. Python changed my life. Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, like that's the good thing like that I wanted. Like I like talking to Michael because like I don't know like whether I can say this, like you're kind of like a encyclopedia, because like you have spent so much time in the Python community and kind of like know all the history about Python. So I really want to know like so like when you started Python, like how does it like because I started Python for data science, so I don't know like when you started Python, like why, like what project you were on, like why choose Python to do that?
So there is a little story as to how I got involved in Python, and it's one of those stories that, again, I don't really know where it begins, but at the time I was working in a rural builders merchant not far from here, selling bricks, and I did that for about 10 years in total, just shy of 10 years, selling bricks and timbers and stuff. And while I was doing that, I was playing this play-by-email game, which is called Atlantis, and it's a strategy game. You have your castles and your armies, and what you do is there's a whole bunch of people playing all across anywhere with an email address, and you email your orders in once a week to this central email server. And then there's a computer, obviously, and it processes the orders, and battles are fought. You go exploring, and it churns out a report and sends it back to you. But because it happens once a week, all the interesting stuff that happens is all the diplomacy between all of the players, because everyone gets everyone's email address and build up your map. And so I was in this alliance, and this game had a fatal flaw. The fatal flaw, Atlantis, a great fun game, but has this problem. I think this problem quite a bunch of games have. There's this imbalance. There's this one monster, the Balrog, and it's way more powerful than anything else. So the end game is always everyone rushes to be powerful enough to create Balrogs, and then it's just down to who's got the most Balrogs. And so my alliance, which was like 12 players or something like this, and I was one of the founding members of this alliance, we had the most Balrogs in the game. All of the other Balrogs in the game were held by this one player. One player, I have to keep my finger on the screen. So it was like him, and then it was all of us. So we marched on him, our whole armies, all of us. And then this one time, we all emailed our orders in, and we all launched our attack, except for the one member of our alliance who forgot. And we got hammered, and I stopped playing the game. But anyway, right, in the meantime, whilst playing the game, somebody said at one point, these are all computer-generated reports. A computer program could read them. And then we could write little robots that could maybe like play the game for us, make some moves and stuff. And I'd done programming about 10 years previously. So prior to going into university, I'd done some assembly language programming on the Amiga, wonderful computer. And, so a bunch of stuff. But I hadn't done any programming in between. And actually, at the time, all I had was this little Jornada handheld PC, PDA. And I said, well, yeah, that sounds great. My only requirement is that it be a programming language that I can learn and use on my handheld PC. And we settled on Squeak, which is a Smalltalk variant. It's a very interesting language. And we're going to start with that. And at the last minute, somebody came in. A guy he's called Adrian. I'm still friends with him on Facebook, and I'm very embarrassed that I've forgotten his name.
Oh my God. That happened to me as well.
So he's in Australia anyway. He sort of swooped in and said, look, you should use Python for this. And if you do it, I'll write the parser for you. So that kind of, and there was a version of Python for the Windows PC, the Pocket PC. So that was how I got into Python. And he wrote this regular expression-based parser that could read in the reports. And I use that to build like a data structure of maps so we can bind all of our maps, and then an implementation of Dijkstra's algorithm for doing pathfinding. So what you do is you tell this little bit of software, right, this army that's here, I want it to go over there, and it will find the shortest route through you across all the terrains through your known map. So, it was fantastic. And this was the thing, and this is, I think, is how I got so involved with Python. Is like, I've been selling bricks, I've been doing it for a bunch of years, and I've been through sort of some troubled times when I was younger, so having that job sort of brought a lot of stability and stuff to me. But my mind came alive when I started using Python, and it was just like, here's this framework, this logical framework that I can think in, that I can build things in. And I just became very passionate about it, very excited about it. And what you're passionate about, what you love, you learn really quickly. So I got involved in it, got involved in everything. It's how I became a core developer, was through making friends with the other core developers, through my involvement with Python, just because it was open source, just because anyone could get stuck in and get involved in. It was fantastic. It was an amazing time of my life, and I learned this language, and I got involved in this community. I was working at this builder's merchant, which had these very strict internet rules, like whitelist only of domains that you can visit. So I bought a building domain, buildingtrades.org.uk. I owned for a while, and then I wrote some building trade related articles so I could get it whitelisted, and then built a CGI proxy in Python. There was a very good Perl one. I just wanted to build one in Python, so I learned all about HTTP through doing that. Because it's like if you're proxying a request and it's got the keep alive header, you can't just forward the request with URL lib2 with the keep alive header in it. All the sort of nitty gritty details that I learned. It was a terrible way of doing it when I was doing it. But I ended up writing some documentation from URL lib2 that then went into the Python standard library, because the documentation wasn't great at the time.
Does request exist at that time?
No, so request didn't exist. Python,
okay.
Python was very different. So when I started, Python 2.3 had just come out. I think it was that way around. So I used Python 2.2 very briefly. But Python 2.3, it didn't have decorators, didn't have the context manager, didn't have abstract base classes. So for a long time, the code I was writing, I'd written something called config.obs, which was pretty popular in its day, this config file reading and writing. The code I was writing, I was maintaining compatibility with Python 2.2 for quite a while. So starting work at Resolver Systems using IronPython, where the base version of Python is 2.4. So suddenly I could start using decorators. Sets were built in by 2.4. 2.3, we had them as, and so I've been here for the addition of all of these features and involved in the discussions with the core developers about how a lot of these features came into being, which is the sort of stuff I love to talk about in teaching, the context for why Python is the way it is.
Yeah, it must be very exciting seeing all these being like, kind of come into the world, because we all take this for granted. Like for us, like younger Pythonisters, we just like take all these decorators, all these like sets and all these things for granted, and like seeing them from nothing become like something we could use.
We still have the same stuff is still going on though. It was really interesting with decorators. Because the syntax had to be picked. The idea was there. I mean, the thing, and it's really interesting, this bit of Python's history, because particularly if you're teaching Python, if you look at the syntax we use for properties, particularly properties with setters, you decorate the getter method with @property, and that's nice and straightforward. And then you have this funny little dance for the setter where you rewrite the same function with the same name, and then you decorate it with the function that you just created and decorated as a property. And it's like, if you step back and look at the language as it is now, and you think, what syntax would I choose for properties? Probably wouldn't come up with that, would you?
Well, I would. I always feel that it's borrowing from other like object-oriented like languages. Is it like the getter, the setter, and all this stuff?
The principles, the techniques, yeah, sure, is exactly the same as properties in a language like C#. But the precise syntax of how Python does it comes about. We had properties prior to that, and we were doing them in the class namespace, but we didn't have decorators. So it was one of the obvious immediate use cases for decorators. But the particular syntax we have now comes about because of the way the class body is built up. It's executed sequentially, so you can have this function that's defined, and then immediately it's been defined in the class namespace. You can then use that to decorate. So it's become a property object by virtue of being decorated. So you're then redecorating the function, your setter function, with the property object you just created. And you redefine it, giving it the same name, because what you want in the namespace after all that has happened is one property object with the setter attached to it. So it comes about because of the way Python works. And because of the history of Python, because of the fact that decorators were added to the language at a particular point. So in order to understand why the syntax is the way it is, it really helps to know a little bit of the history. And this is the thing about Python. It comes out of the Unix tradition. It comes out of a community. One of the things I was about to say with the decorators is they picked the @ symbol. And when I say they, I mean specifically Guido. And there's this very long discussion in Python community, and long and short of it was everyone hated it except Guido. Guido did it anyway, and it turned out to be a great decision. And we've still had this with the walrus operator that implemented that.
That's the hottest.
So, it's the same story again. It hasn't changed. It's just got bigger. We've got more core developers. We've got a bigger community. It's much wider. But the same sort of stuff is going on. Python is still changing and growing. These things that I've talked about, abstract base classes and type annotations, even though between them they've been in the language for quite a while, they are changing Python. And they're changing the way that you think about Python or can think about Python, very much influenced by languages like Go structural typing, the interfaces. You can see abstract base classes in some ways as like that, but they take advantage of Python's power and the Python language. So we have implementation in abstract base classes. But we've got a new way of thinking about behavior and modeling behavior through interfaces, which just was completely not present in Python. And I think it's interesting that some people haven't, from the Python community from when I was joined, haven't felt carried along by some of the changes in Python. Type annotations in particular are quite a change in philosophy to Python. And they're not ubiquitous, but there's some really interesting tooling coming around. Black is a really interesting,
Yes.
nothing to do with type annotations, but inspired by Go Fmut, effectively bringing some consensus to Python style issues, breaking PEP8 notably. But if Black takes off, if Black becomes ubiquitous, and there'll be a threshold beyond which it gets ubiquitous, then that will change what the experience of developing with Python. And I think for the better. The experience in Go, as much as Python is a far superior language in just about every way, but it's nice not to have to, that some questions have just got answers now. And that's what I like about Python. It's so pragmatic. It's like there are certain ways of developing evolved by the community that if you follow those practices, there are some problems you just don't have. Like virtual environments or Conda Anaconda environments as well, they're solving the same problem. And if you follow the rule, when I'm working at the terminal, when I'm developing, I always have a virtual environment, a VM active, or I always have a Conda environment active. So when I install something, when I say pip install, I know that that's going into a particular environment, and I know which one because I can see from my terminal.
Yeah.
Then you never get into the situation where you've screwed up your system Python because you've installed multiple versions of the same library into it and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to teach the beginners now, like on Sunday.
Standard
So
workflows and practices that just solve a whole bunch of problems. And I think it may turn out, I hope it turns out, that Black just answers a whole bunch of questions about Python style. So it's one less thing to think about and worry about and argue about. That's controversial within the Python community. Not everyone wants to see that happen.
Well, I have friends who hate Black, so
yeah.
There you go.
Everyone change. Everyone, they're just
yeah, but like you said, like the community grows so big, and like because the development of Python is so driven by the community, do you think there's any changes like that you noticed in the community except it got bigger, like maybe demographically, or like how or even like how people perceive the Python community changes, like
That's a really interesting and broad question. The Python community has changed dramatically in the time that I've been here for various reasons. When I started using Python, I used it as an enthusiast. It wasn't with a view to getting it as a career. It was prior to the web explosion. So Python was a fairly niche language, and it was an enthusiast language. And this, I think, is actually the great secret of its success. The community and the community comes out of Python's history. And Python was an enthusiast language, not used commercially because it was dynamically typed, interpreted, although.
Hello. Sorry, I the connection was gone. So we were talking about the Python community, how it changes. And sorry about that. You may have to go through it again.
Okay, so I don't know where we got up to, but I was rambling anyway. The Python community has changed a lot. It was very small, and it's grown as the use of Python has grown. But also, what I love about the Python community that it made it inclusion has always been part of the ethos of Python, and the ethos of the way it's developed. The love of open source is part of what's driven the growth of Python. And so we've seen this big push for diversity, and that's diversity in gender, diversity in race, gender identity, income, various dimensions of diversity that the Python community has made it, as far as I can tell, a genuine best effort at addressing. And we've seen things like you go to conferences and there are very obviously a lot more women around, because it's 5 or 6 times as many as there were when I I joined the Python community, or more than that. And that's fantastic. That's, every sane person wants women around. So that's a great way that the community has changed and grown. But the growth has been problematic in that the sense that when I started, I went to my first PyCon in around 2007, I think it was, and it was about 600 people, and you could pretty much know, almost everybody there. It was amazing to me to go there for the first time and find that these online friendships really did translate into real world friendships. That was a fantastic experience. But that sense of closeness as a community changed dramatically when the Python use expanded, and a lot of us grew up as well and had lives and had children and had breakdowns and all of the things that people do. And the Python community, and there's kind of been a bit of a feeling of a coming back together. I think it feels like in a way that things have shaken out and settled out. The data science community, this is the other big change. The other big change is whole new sort of ecosystems themselves. Data science education is a huge area where Python is used in the sub-community itself. So just about everything about using Python has changed. The language has changed. The world has changed.
Yeah, I think that's like not avoidable, right? There's no way a community can stay forever. It's just like whether the change is going to be better or worse.
Well,
Yeah.
there we're getting philosophical. Impermanence, change is the only constant. And I think that's, so this is what I love about loved immediately about agile development and agile software, extreme programming. It's building into the way you develop and your workflows and processes the ability to change direction and change, because change is going to come. And I think refactoring is a great example. If you follow standard development models, it's very easy to get yourself in a situation where technical debt has built up and the code has grown and evolved and no longer fits the structure. And now adding in anything is very painful. And so you have to wait until you get to crisis, to the point where you can virtually do nothing at all until you've changed everything. And then we go and repeat the same cycle again. And Agile says, well, look, we can do better than that. We know that things are going to have to change, and we want to think about that. We want to be conscious and aware of that, and we want to be dealing with it. So you build into, you have short iterations. The business owns priorities, but the developer owns estimates. And then I've managed to segue into a completely different topic that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
I noticed that, but I gotta bring you back because to the Python community, because like you talk about agile like management. Can we have kind of similar thing in Python community? So if
change, you've got to include in your culture the ability to change, and I think that's what's fantastic about agile. And I think that's what happens with communities, is if you don't understand that you're going to have to change, you're going to have to cope with a new world every year, then things are going to be harder. Imagining things will stay the same is a mistake.
So imagine now, like we are doing the agile practice, and so now, like if you are the user, right? So you're part of the stakeholders of the community. So what do you think we need most now for the Python community? Like how could people, let's say like people like me or my friends, like we have just come in for a few years time in Python, what we can do to kind of, keep this Python, legend going?
Well, I love the way that you teach Python, Cherry, and I think that's I've always enjoyed teaching. I've always enjoyed passing on what I know, and I think part of that is that, and they call it the fifth stage of learning is teaching. It's like you only really know that you understand something when you can communicate it effectively to somebody else, and doing that changes your understanding. Because in trying to communicate it to somebody else, you're trying to put it in terms that they can understand. So you're having to think about it differently, think about it from the outside, from somebody else's point of view. Where it's very easy, you can have vague ideas, and it's very easy to think that they're much less vague than they are. Until you try and explain it to someone, it becomes very clear. So I think, and I think one of the things I'm trying to do and haven't done as well as I'd like is to pull out of my teaching what aspects, all of the aspects of that come from the community. I've learned so much from the community. And we have these principles about programming, and a lot of those are very standard things, like between the try and accept block, inside the try and accept block, put as little code in the try and accept, protect as little code, and be as specific as possible with the exception type that you catch, so that you don't mask bugs. I mean, it's the sort of standard thing that you would teach if you're teaching Python or if you're teaching programming. But there's an awful lot of this stuff that comes from the community. And I think that trying to socialize good practices, particularly like you're doing, and particularly with the standard workflows, like using virtual environments, good practices. We prefer to talk about good practices rather than best practices. I only have best practices in a fully
Oh,
understood problem domain.
yeah, like that would be a debate on
Good
best
practices.
practices, but good practices I think is the first step. So I think I want to ask the questions that I think a lot of people want to ask at the end. So because you're a Python core developer, I know a lot of young aspiring Pythonists want to be a core Python developer. So how to become a core Python developer and what advice you can give? This is the most difficult question, to be honest.
And you know the answers to that as well as I do, Cherry. And it's not easy, but it's not very hard. And mostly it just takes getting involved. And there are lots of ways of getting involved, and lots of those don't necessarily lead to being core developer. There are so many other worthwhile things to give yourself to, much of which you're involved in. I know the mentoring, Django Girls, Women Who Code. There are many ways of getting involved in the community and contributing that don't end up becoming a core developer. The conventional route to becoming a core developer is to join in the discussion on Python dev, to triage bugs on the issue tracker and comment on them, and start submitting fixes. There's a Python mentors mailing list. I don't know if they're still active, but there's an official core developer mentorship program, which is probably the best way of getting involved. But really, it doesn't require knowing C, because there's an awful lot of work to do in the Python standard library. I think that's a misconception that some people have, that the only way to get involved is to. I don't program in C. I understand a reasonable amount about the Python internals, and I know, you need to know that in order to have a reasonably rigorous understanding of Python, but you don't need to know C in order to be able to contribute effectively to Python. Most of my contributions have been to unit test, context lib, a little bit in inspect, unit test.mock itself, but all in Python stuff in the standard library. And the complete answer really is that if you make useful contributions, and it's more useful to the other Python core developers to have you not have to have other people commit your code, then you'll get commit rights. But finding someone to mentor you, finding help via Python dev, the Python core mentorship list, and there's a dev guide that's got all of this stuff in it up on the python.org website.
Yeah, I think that's what, like, I think right now I don't feel like I need to be a Python core dev, but I really want to clear these questions, because like last time I've been to a conference and there are many people asking Marietta like how to become a core dev or things like that. So
definitely cachet in being a Python core developer. It's a lovely thing to be able to say. And it's a great way to contribute. If you contribute code to the Python, whether or not you become a core developer, then your code is going to be on millions of computers and maybe used by millions of developers. And that's a great way to give back to humanity, to genuinely.
yeah, so I think if you feel like this is what you're interested in, if you like looking at the Python internals, so there's something that you could give back to the humanities. So or if you kind of like me, you prefer doing like more community work, that's also another way, I think. So thank you so much, Michael. I want to keep this very lightweight interview, so not to challenge you with a lot of questions. I know you have a lot to say, but if you want to know more about Michael and or his amazing knowledge, I do believe he got lots of talks recorded in his past appearances in other conferences.
AgileAbstractions.com is my website, my work, and Void Space on Twitter. I'm absolutely hilarious, obviously.
You know what? I got to ask you all this and for the link, and I would put them in the description. And if people want to, ask you questions or kind of annoys you, they could So yeah, so thank you so much. I think this is the end of the interview. So yeah,
Okay.
so if you
Very
want,
helpful.
yeah, so thank you so much. If you want to catch it, this is air on Friday, on Wednesday. So yeah. Sorry, I haven't unmuted myself. Hello, we are back. So yeah.
Hello.
So I hope you like the interview with Michael, and it's really interesting. And I think that the best thing is like I could ask him like how to become a Python codev, because I think a lot of people want to be a Python codev. Like I was trying to like work more, but I think nowadays I spend more time in the community work rather than coding. So I think it's more reasonable for me to do this at the moment. But in the future, if I decided to to be you know uh, working like more just staring at the screen and coding, then I could maybe see if I can contribute to the Python itself, the C Python. So if even if you don't want to contribute to C Python, there's other interpreter you can contribute to. You won't be a codev, but like you still got a lot of respect from the community. I do know friends who is the working on PyPI. There's he's the maintainer of PyPI, and and also he's a highly respected guy. So yeah. So so I think we still have something we want to say. We have a PyPI highlight like usual, because I think it's a good session that kind of push us to discover more Python libraries and give shout out to them and show them appreciation, and because I think as a maintainer of a library, if more people are using it, then they're more happy. And if you're super nice to them, and on GitHub, even if you like open an issue, you can be super nice, then they would totally love you. Or even like send a pull request to help them improve. They would be like want to hug you, virtual hugs, So yeah. So I think Lay's find a very interesting library this week, and let me cut to that with this sharing screen. You can see I'm clicking on it right now. Like I haven't thought about that, but yeah, it's fine. So you see that? Yes. Okay. So tell us a little bit about it.
Dun dun dun. So I'm sharing with you guys today my discovery about fades. So fades was written by a friend of ours. So it's Nico's library, and it's from the guys from Python Argentina, and it's basically a Python dependencies manager. So if you don't know what I'm talking about when I'm saying dependencies, um, keep coming to visit us. But basically, Fades is a automatic manager of those dependencies. So you know how long we spend usually trying to. I mean, I do because I'm quite new at the craft. I spend a lot of time managing dependencies by hand. So activating, deactivating them, creating them, and then forgetting where I put them and trying to look for them again and reutilize them. So all that time could be spared if I just had heard about Fades beforehand. So basically, what Fades does is it gets some parameters, and from your CLI, you're able to just implement those dependencies into any new virtual environments that you wish. And it's quite interesting how fast it does it and how easy it is to manage dependencies with it. So with no activation anymore, it's just global installation and a little bit of CLI, and that's it.
So I think it kind of sit in the spectrum of another like use case that yeah, that because for me it's just like I will have millions of environments in my computer, and I will switch in between them. But I think this is more for people who maybe work on a project in a longer period, that they don't mind installing and reinstalling stuff. And yeah, but like it's an option. I think it's an option for people maybe like more in data science project, because they may work on the same project for quite a long time without switching in between. So I think that's another option. So yeah, I think that's a good discovery. Yeah.
I really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So let's see what I have. So so the story behind Jupyter Require is that I work for Terminus DB, yay! So like I also maintain the Python libraries for Terminus DB. So what we're trying to do, because we are developing it quite fast, and then we already have a integration with the pandas data frame. So when you grab the data graph data like from your graph database in Terminus DB, the result could be returned as a table in your Jupyter notebook, or even in the program, and you can do other pandas stuff with it. So, but I see that there's actually it will be good to have a graph visualization in your Jupyter notebook as well, because I know data scientists will love it. And so I'm looking at what libraries you can use to run some JavaScript in your in your Jupyter notebook. And there are actually a lot of tutorials teaching you how to do that. Some of them use some like Jupyter Magic and stuff, but I quite like Jupyter Require because so this one actually you can just run it like so you don't have to use the magic and stuff. You can just import Jupyter Requires, and then yeah, you can set a config using the D3, so you can just load in like a JavaScript mini file. And actually it is quite, it could be, I'm thinking about using it in our libraries, or with our libraries, so we can do that. And we do have the graph visualization module in JavaScript, in React, but I think the way of pulling it in Jupyter Notebook without too much coding, that would be great. So I think Jupyter Requires could be the candidate that help us to do that. Or even if not, I could learn so much from just look at the code and how they achieve that as well. So I think it's a very cool library. If you're using Jupyter Notebook, if you want to have an interactive um, graph or port that's in D3 or in JavaScript, that you could do that. And yeah, so that's that. And yeah, well, of course you have to write some JavaScript, but I think D3 is easy enough to learn. So um, yeah, what do you
And
think?
another
Are you
functionality.
impressed?
Another functionality. I am impressed. Yes, absolutely. I was just thinking because I haven't I always imagined if it was possible to use some CSS on Jupyter Notebook.
You can.
I haven't seen any application. Yeah, this is super cool.
Yeah, you can change the look of it because yeah, because I think when you export it as HTML, because you can do it or even I think you can export it as PDF as well. It didn't work for me before. I think because I was using it on Windows or something. That's super weird. But you can you can change the look of it with CSS. So when you export it, then I think I haven't tried it, but I think it will keep the CSS, and you can have a more customizable report, or things that you could present. So I think it's a good idea. And you can see how powerful the whole Jupyter ecosystem is. Like it's just
It's amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
so many functionalities.
yeah, so many extensions, and it's open source, so everybody can ideally can customize anything. So yeah. So
Yeah,
wow.
maybe we could do our I mean, if we get selected for EuroPython, we could do the slides. I could try to do the slides on Jupyter Notebook with some CSS formatting.
There is actually a extension called Rise, RISE, that actually you can make your Jupyter Notebook into a presentation. So I think they use a JavaScript library also called Rise or something. I forgot that. It's like the thing in slides.com is you can make it into a presentation on the front end. So I think yeah, try that would be a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
it's just
think
another experimentation, and it's probably going to become a lightning talk as well. So how did I put this into this?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today's Meet Sweet Pie, and it's been like an hour. Yay! So if you are watching through the whole hour, that thank you so much, and uh, yeah, like we will try to have interviews keep coming, and next week we'll have Naomi Sita, the director of the PSR. So yeah, so that's great.
Yes, so exciting interview for next week. And also we're coming back with a discussion. It's more of a showcase of IDEs. So you can tell us everything about your favorite IDE. And I will do a little bit of research and come back with my findings to share with you guys.
Yeah. Okay, so I think yeah. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week with the super duper exciting interview and also the IDE showcase. So yeah, stay tuned and tell your friends. I think we need more love from you. Yeah,
Yeah,
or
please.
suggestions, Twitter, or leave comments in my Twitch is also fine, or find us on Twitter is also fine. So yeah, see you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.